In a busy, hushed ward, a senior physician is walking a team through a routine procedure, but in the rush of the moment, the attending doctor overlooks a critical, life-threatening medication interaction. A junior nurse next to the bed sees the mistake instantly. The dosage is wrong. But instead of stopping the procedure, the nurse calculates the social and professional risk of correcting the boss in front of the team and chooses to stay completely quiet. The incorrect medication is administered. A preventable adverse event occurs, sending the patient into intensive care, all because a piece of vital information was trapped in the mind of someone who felt they couldn't speak. This sequence plays out constantly across every industry. This deliberate withholding of information is a systemic behavioral response, and it routinely sabotages organizations from the inside out. When leadership discovers these communication breakdowns, their reaction is highly predictable. They launch Speak Up campaigns, roll out anonymous whistleblower hotlines, and dust off the corporate suggestion boxes. These programs reliably fail. Research tracking workplace communication reveals that up to 85% of employees still deliberately withhold critical work-related issues, even when formal reporting policies are fully active. The failure stems from a flawed assumption in the executive suite. Management treats silence as simply the opposite of voice. They assume that if people aren't speaking up, they just don't have anything to say. Demanding that people talk is a waste of time if leadership refuses to examine the psychological mechanics of why their employees are actively hiding the truth. Employee silence is defined as the intentional withholding of ideas, information, or concerns. It is an active, exhausting choice to keep the lid shut. Voice and silence are independent constructs, not two ends of a single spectrum. An employee can score high on voice by championing a new tool, while simultaneously scoring high on silence by hiding a major safety hazard created by their manager. These actions are controlled by different internal systems. Voice is driven by behavioral activation, the desire to improve things and gain a positive outcome. Silence is driven by behavioral inhibition, the biological need for self-protection against a perceived threat. Because these two systems operate independently, a corporate policy that successfully rewards employee voice will mathematically fail to decrease employee silence. You can easily create a loud office that is still hiding its most dangerous problems. To understand why the behavioral inhibition system kicks in, we have to look at the motives. The most obvious is defensive silence. This is triggered by the immediate fear of punishment, retaliation, or being ostracized by the team. Then there is acquiescent silence. This form is rooted in deep resignation. The employee has determined that speaking up is completely pointless because nothing will change anyway. Both of these reactions are heavily reinforced by rigid organizational hierarchies. When power is highly centralized and historical feedback has been consistently ignored, the environment trains people to keep their heads down. Employees withhold facts because the organizational structure has proven to them repeatedly that sharing information is either highly dangerous or entirely futile. Maintaining this active silence extracts a massive individual toll, especially in high-pressure, high-stakes environments like frontline healthcare. Suppressing negative emotions and critical concerns triggers the sympathetic nervous system. The body stays in a state of heightened arousal, flooding the individual with ongoing stress. This flowchart maps the consequence of that stress. Hierarchical pressure forces a suppressed concern, leading to nervous system activation. Longitudinal data links this cycle directly to 3 dimensions of employee burnout: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a sharp drop in personal accomplishment. Fostering a culture of silence deprives the company of useful data, while simultaneously degrading the cognitive and emotional capacity of the workforce. Leaders must pivot away from trying to extract voice. Instead, they must actively dismantle interpersonal risk. This requires building psychological safety. It is an environment where the historical data of the team actively proves there is absolutely zero professional or social penalty for delivering a dissenting opinion. Supervisors must operate as sense-makers. A sense-maker never waits for the suggestion box to fill up. They openly acknowledge the systemic flaws in their own daily processes, and they specifically invite targeted critiques from their team. Organizations also have to establish procedural justice. Management must execute visible, transparent changes based on the feedback they receive, proving that speaking up is no longer futile. True psychological safety is never measured by how many ideas end up in a feedback system. It is measured by the complete absence of hidden risks in the room. A superficially loud organizational culture demands input. A genuinely safe culture protects the messenger. Employee silence is never simply golden. It is an active, flashing warning system that the entire structural environment is broken. The ultimate goal of an organization is not to force people to talk. It is to build an environment where the truth never feels the need to hide.